How we doing today, neighbors? Ian with eTrailer here, and today we're going to be taking a look at and then installing the Curt custom fit wiring harness for 4-pole connector on our 2025 Kia Sorento. Let's go over a few features and see if this can be a great product for you. The Kia Sorento is a popular vehicle, and even with the 2025s we see no exception to that rule. And when it comes to having proper lighting on either your accessory or trailer, there is not a current factory option that we've seen coming on the Sorentos. So to be able to get your 4-pole wiring, which is going to be your 3 main functions of turn signals, the tail lights, and then those clearance lights, this Curt connector is going to be a great option to be able to tie directly into the tail lights on your vehicle, giving you all those functions here to your accessory or trailer. As I said, this is going to be a ModuLite type system where it's going to hook directly behind our taillights to the OEM wiring, and will include a control module that's going to live here on the driver's side that's going to prevent any type of backfeed or issues that you may have coming from your trailer or accessory, protecting your OEM wiring on your vehicle. Now when it comes to the install for this, there's a few tips that I wanted to give before I give the entire presentation of how to put this onto your vehicle. One thing we did run into is that our mounting location on the driver's side here under the plastics underneath the vehicle actually made it to where the wire coming to our passenger side tail lights behind me was just a little bit short. So I would suggest possibly having some spare wire and more heat shrink butt connectors, which we're going to address in the video, available to be able to extend that wire if need be. Additionally, to the kit for our wiring, we did add our 4-pole connector bracket and a short bracket to attach that directly to the hitch. It is a no drill bracket that just includes a clamp, so I would highly suggest, if you're going to be putting the wiring on your vehicle, to grab these with your order. And as I said before, I am going to walk you through the entire process of how we hook this up to this vehicle to help you get yours on your vehicle. But if you happen to watch the video and think to yourself, I don't want to try to tackle this, please do use a dealer locator on the website. It's going to help find a trained professional in your area that can get this installed for you. But for all those DIYers, let's go ahead and hop into it and we'll get it taken care of. Now, since our plugs are going to be attaching to the factory harness here behind the taillights, we will need to remove those taillights on each side. I've already got the driver's side done, and the procedure is the exact same on both sides. So these little tabs will open up if you push down on the top and move out of the way, exposing 2 Phillips head screws that we will need to take out. And we'll set both of those screws aside so that way we keep track of them. Now we can just give those tail lights a wiggle, get any debris out of the retention points that it's held on by. And we'll get our hand back behind this top upper edge, kind of push up on the bottom and pull away. And if we need to, we can use a plastic trim panel tool, get on the back side of our tail light and just start working it back towards the rear of the vehicle. Once that pops loose, we'll very carefully take our connector. There's a little push tab here. Push down on that and pull away, and that will unplug. Now we're going to be running the wires up through the pocket here behind the fascia. So just to make a little bit more room for us, there's 2 push pin fasteners that we'll just take out and set aside. That's going to give us a little bit more wiggle room. That way if we wanted to come up on the inside of the pocket, we've got the option to do that there. Now we need to fish a wire or something down through the inside of the fascia in that pocket. I'm just going to be using a spare piece of airline, but you can use the coiled wire that they send for the power wire as the option. So run that down, reach up back behind the fascia, and then we'll pull that that down. And one thing you do want to check is underneath, back behind that fascia, we do want to stay away from any hot or moving parts when we're setting all this up. So we do have the exhaust right here. We're just going to double check the routing of how we're coming up through that fascia and see how that's going to look. Now on the driver's side, once we've got that tail light removed, we're going to hang out under the vehicle for a second here. There was a plastic panel with 3 push pin style fasteners, just like we had at the tail light, and then 2 15mm plastic nuts. Once you've got the push pins out, you can just get those plastic nuts loose by hand, but you can also use that 15mm socket to help get those off. Now we're going to mount this box up on the driver's side here under where that panel was. So I believe the best spot for us is going to be right here. Now the kit will come with a single self-tapper. You can either use that for the ground or your mounting for the box. We're going to be using it for the box and then have an additional screw added for our ground. Now we're going to deal with the white wire that's got the ring terminal on the end of that. That's going to be our ground. So what I'm going to do is route that up over the top of the box, and we do need to go into some fresh metal here. So we'll just get that set with another self-tapper. Now the wires remaining that we have hanging off of this are going to be that 4-pole wiring. So we'll just hang that kind of by the hitch just so it's out of the way. And the 2 we're going to focus on at the moment are going to be this bundled set of brown, red, and yellow wires here, and then our green wire going across. So this is going to be our driver's side plug. Again, we're going to run that fish wire down through the pocket, grab onto this and pull that up there. But first we're going to run over the passenger side. So I'll find a good routing for that and then kind of show you how I've got it over to the bottom of our fascia here. Now following that green wire that we've run over to the passenger side, it's going to go up above the main bumper beam, pretty much above our hitch, just following the OEM wiring all the way across, going up above the mounts so that way it's safe from the exhaust here, and then into the pocket following up to our tail light. Now additionally with the kit, you're going to get this long wire set that's going to be routed to the battery at the front of the vehicle. I've already got that routed for us, and that's going to be tying into our black wire off of the control module. So of course we'll have to find a good place for that to be connected. But first I wanted to go over the routing of how I got this up to the engine bay and the battery up there. So starting here at the fender liner, we've got it attached to a hard brake line, and I actually followed that up over the axle assembly here in the rear, and then inside the pocket, zip tied again right there. Still following those brake lines, we've come up over the axle assembly completely, and we're going to go around the driver's side of the fuel tank, still tying into those hard brake lines since those are going to be running to the front for us. And we're continuing to follow that same pattern. This does come loose with just some 10mm bolts that hold it up in place, and another one of those 15mm plastic push style nuts like we had in the back. And still continues to go up those hard brake lines all the way to the firewall and up to the battery. Now again, we need to route the wiring back here. So I did add on some additional zip tie, just sticky holders that are going to help keep that wire routed over to our black wire here. So I'm going to strip back the end of our wire going up to the battery. And I'm going to be using heat shrink butt connectors on this. They are not included with the kit. They just come with regular butt connectors. I would suggest, since this is going to be living outside of the vehicle, to upgrade to some heat shrink butt connectors, which can be purchased with your wiring order as well. So we'll crimp on the end coming from our battery. Come jump back over to our wire coming off that control module, get that stripped. Make sure we're going to be clear as far as our routing. Should be good to go. So we'll get our other end and our heat shrink butt connector here and crimp that down. Now we'll come back with a heat gun, shrink down that butt connector to keep it safe. And we'll secure the rest of that wire up with some zip ties. Of course, your routing may look a little different than ours just because we've got access to a few more hardware options here, but of course can be just zip tied directly to the wiring there if need be. Now once we've got that routed up to each side, we're going to hang on to that tail light and keep it close because we're going to need that as soon as we're hooked up. And we've got one end that's going to be a mimic of the OEM harness and one that is a mimic of the plug on the tail light. So that one for the tail light will go to the OEM harness. And then we can take our tail light and use that other end to plug directly into the bottom of the tail light on each side. And that will click into place and we can return the tail light back where it was. Now here at the engine bay, we've got our power wire routed back to the rear of the vehicle, and we're going to zip tie that up wherever we see fit and what's going to work best for us. But we do need to add in our fuse link. It's going to come with both ends stripped like this. One of them you're going to attach the ring terminal, just crimp that onto that bare wire exactly like we did with the heat shrink butt connectors in the back. And we'll add an additional heat shrink butt connector on the other side of our loop. You do want to make sure you've got the fuse out before we go to hook all this up. We'll crimp to that. And then I'm going to get all the extra slack out of our wire here, get it zip tied to something nice and secure, more than likely this stud here at the back. Or we can wrap that around the back of our battery. Trim off a good chunk of that excess that we have. And then strip that end back. Add our fused link here and crimp down and heat shrink that. Now we're going to pull back the cover for our positive post, and I'm going to be using this stud here. Of course, if that stud is occupied or maybe you can't get the nut off of that, you can add it to any of the other ones. We're just going to go with this to make it easy for video purposes. So that's going right there. Put our nut back on. Get that snug down. Then we can put in the 10 amp fuse. And close that lid up. And we'll go back and double check one more time after all this is hooked up that we do have good signal coming out. So you can either hook a tester up like we're going to be doing, or you could hook up your accessory or trailer and test all of the functions that way. Now running through our functions, we'll start with our left turn signal, then that right turn signal, our clearance lights on and clearance lights off, and then that brake light. Now with everything tested and we've confirmed that it is working well, one additional thing we're going to be adding to this neighbor's vehicle here is this short bracket and then the 4-pole bracket. So they are not included with the kit, but a wonderful addition to the back of this vehicle here, and going to give our 4-pole wiring a good place to be able to live. Now I'm going to route that 4-pole wiring the exact same way that we did for the green wire that went over to the passenger side. Have that come up and over. Then we need to grab the dust cap and throw that on. And we'll take the cap, run that head through the slot here, then up and over the wires. Then we can push our 4-pole wiring into place. And then we'll add the cap onto that to help keep it safe when not in use. And with all that tested and complete, we can go ahead and get our plastic panel back on the underbelly of the driver's side, get all of our hardware back in place for that underside splash panel. And that's going to do for our look at an installation of the Curt custom fit wiring harness for 4-pole connector on our 2025 Kia Sorento. My name's Ian with eTrailer, and I appreciate you watching.